This episode of the Kingston Live podcast is brought to you by Grand Onstage. Get the most out of the Kingston Grand Theatre experience with access to pre-sale tickets, the best prices, and the best seats. Tickets for individual performances and subscriptions for the Grand Onstage season are on sale now at kingstongrand.ca.
There's the saying, like, you can't love someone else until you love yourself. And I've always thought that too is kind of like, it's kind of a downer thing to say, and it feels like isolating in a way. I don't think that you should have to feel like you have to like figure yourself out entirely before you go and make a connection with someone else. I think you can learn to do that through loving someone else and through having supportive people around you.
No style of music that has stuck around has remained unchanged from its debut. Whether gradually or suddenly, all genres change in sound and aesthetics over time. The big names inspire new generations, and those generations bring along new interpretations, ideas, and sounds. Rock shifts between heavy and melodic, hip-hop speeds up and slows down, and what is considered indie today sounds nothing like indie in the 2000s, which sounds very little like indie in the 90s. And then there's emo. Starting in the late 80s and early 90s as a branch of hardcore, emo has been adopted by bands ranging from melodic and experimental acts like American Football to high-energy pop-punk bands like Blink-182 and My Chemical Romance. The one thing that remains consistent is the feelings and the vibe, and that keeps listeners coming back year after year. This is Kingston Live, and today we're sitting down with guitarist and vocalist Andrew Pitre and drummer Curtis Nicholson of Monach, a pop-punk quartet that's proudly carrying the emo flag in Kingston.
And welcome to Kingston Live. My name is Riley Jabor. Joining me as co-host this time around is...
Virginia.
Hello, friend.
Hello, let's go.
This time around, on this edition of Kingston Live, it is Monach. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having us.
So tell us, for anybody unfamiliar with Monach, what is like the single sentence, here's who we are, this is what we are, best way to describe yourselves in like a second?
Friends having fun.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Just four dudes having fun.
Just four dudes being guys.
Yeah.
I love it.
That.
My first question for you is, one of the last times I saw you was at a pop-punk emo night.
Yeah.
And those are one of my favorite things on planet Earth right now. But I did the math recently. Somebody pointed out to me, I think it was the Taking Back Sunday like 20th anniversary tour that was just announced with Coheed and Cambria. And the fact that it's 20th anniversary, I was like, oh no, is this retro? Like, is us our age going to pop punk nights kind of the equivalent of that 70s show in the 90s?
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about that? And what's the vibe like with younger folks getting into the pop punk emo scene and people, you know, in their 30s reliving their high school glory days?
I think you're a little bit right. Like, I try to be like, no, it's still, all that stuff's still relevant, but just, you can't help but feel like, oh, this is our like version of like 80s night or stuff like that. But it's fun seeing people come out regardless of like age and know all the words, and everyone's still partying to all the same songs. So it makes me feel good as someone that grew up listening to that and wasn't exactly like the most popular choice of music at the time. So
makes me feel a little old sometimes because, like, I don't know, it's just songs that we listened to that were like brand new, or like, oh, this is so cool and new and fun, and then all of a sudden it's like on classic rock radio and you're like, oh no, what's happening?
Yeah, you're hearing like Sum 41 on classic radio. You're like, what? That's not
my back
at
hurts.
all.
What's happening?
I'm being aged in real time.
Oh, I hate this.
But at the same time, you're still seeing that younger generation come up, like you mentioned, and even some of the bands that are being covered for nights like that, like seeing like Modern Baseball have a cover set from Future Free, was like, that feels like, you know, new generation emo, and there's still that younger generation coming up with it, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's fun to see how that genre is just like continuing to grow and like evolve. I like it. Anyway,
Speaking of growing and evolving, how did you guys get to this point? What led to you guys being here? Tell us about the history of Monach so far.
So we actually got together under a completely different name and a completely different lineup. We just got together just under the pretense of we're gonna jam out some covers of like Green Day, Blink-182, like big pop punk heavy hitters. And our drummer at the time I'd known for a couple years, and I'd sent him a couple songs to kind of collab on, probably back as like early 2010s. So I was like, hey, why don't we like bring those songs in, bring some songs in that we all have sitting around that we're not doing anything with, write some new ones, and take a swing at making an album and doing like an actual serious like band thing. And we did that, and that's how we got Dooner, which we recorded with our buddy Ryan, who liked the song so much he joined the band somewhere down the road.
Yeah, he was like playing drums at one point. He was guitar.
He's been all over the place.
Slaps the keys too.
Yeah, he's a talented, handsome boy.
And your new record is the first one with this full new lineup, right?
Yes. I'm very excited about it. It's only been what feels like 500 years, but actually only like 5 years. So it's been a long time getting it to fruition, but
Absolutely.
yeah.
So, how did you adopt the name Monach?
So we previously were going under Hot Knives. When we did our first lineup change, we sat down, had a discussion about it, and we were like, this name doesn't really feel like we have a connection to it. It doesn't feel like it's something that represents us going forward. And we brainstormed for a while trying to figure out a good band name, but everything we were like, no, that's been done before. And I remembered seeing a website called like the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, which is like made up words for feelings that you can't quite like explain. And there's one monachopsis or monachopsis. I can't even say it properly, so I don't know why
Monachopsis.
Yeah.
Phenomena.
And it's the feeling of perpetually feeling out of place, which as like a self-proclaimed elder emo, I was like, oh, that feels relevant. I would relate to that. So we just shortened it, and now we get to hear it mispronounced for the rest of our day.
Monarch.
Yeah, Monarch.
It's the worst when autocorrect is working against you.
Yeah.
Every time I type it, it's like, did you mean monarch? No.
Yeah, we really played ourselves with this one, unfortunately.
So, I've gone to a lot of your shows throughout the years. You seem to have a consistent fan base. How do you create that genuine connection with them? Like, what brings them back to every show?
I would say making sure that I stumble over and knock something over and cuddle Nick on stage once every show.
I think I've gotten pictures of that.
You have, for sure. No, I'd say just treating everyone like we've all been friends for years that comes to the shows, basically. I think it helps that all four of us are good friends outside of the band. I think that comes through and makes it easier for people to feel a connection to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've noticed a lot of people that we have at our shows are people that we're actually friends with too. Like, and I feel like I've brought people out, and like Andrew would bring people out. They meet at our show, and now they're hanging out also. And then we say, we're playing a show next weekend. They're like, oh, sweet, and they all just come back out, and it's just everyone has a good time every time. So we just kind of keep that up.
Yeah.
I think it's also a very supportive scene, too, a very supportive crowd of, like, even people that maybe don't know each other. If you fly solo into one of those shows, you always wind up, like, making a friend in a weird way. That sounds so strange to say as an adult. But, like, there's people that you just, like, oh, we're obviously here for the same reason. We're into the same scene. And you just feel that, like, moment of connection, that genuine bond with everybody else in the crowd. And I think that kind of speaks to, like, the scene in emo, in pop punk, and in Kingston. Do you guys feel that same sort of vibe? Do you feel the scene in the same way as somebody in the crowd does?
I think so, yeah. I remember going to shows growing up, going to these places where, again, it wasn't music that was like really popular at the time, so I wasn't the most popular kid, but I'd go there and I'd see people like moshing and helping people up in the pit, and I was like, oh, these people are like feeling the same things as I'm feeling. They're all here for the same reason as I am. And the feeling of like unity and belonging going to those shows is something that I really want to like bring to our audience.
Yeah. I think too, it's like I met the other guys in the band at shows at Time to Laugh, I think like years ago. And like we've always like kind of known each other too. And I know from experience, like people that have just met at shows and started bands and then put on their own shows, then people, it's very insular. I think a lot of people get a lot of that just in the scene.
And there's also that element of like building a scene, creating a scene, which kind of ties into like the DIY ethos of the scene. And I know there is a lot of DIY going on with one of your new releases.
Yes, your music video for Thank You, Chef.
Softest woos this week.
Yeah, but they harmonize so well.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you filmed that in a basement?
In a little garage that like is my neighbor's. They're friends with us. They've come to a bunch of shows. We were trying to brainstorm places to just film a music video. And I just happened to be pulling in one day into my driveway and just looked at it and was like, I bet I could ask them to clear it out. We'll just film in there. And they were super like, yeah, absolutely. Like, I can't wait. It's gonna be awesome. And that's it worked out really well.
And we really wanted to have something like just DIY and easy and something that would translate well to TikTok, because we're pretty well aware that that plays a part in how bands get exposure nowadays. So I remember seeing like TikToks of other bands playing with just like the background changing. I was like, we could do something like that, but just have something happening in the foreground changing constantly. And yeah, that's how we came up with the video idea.
I'm glad you brought up TikTok, because all the talk of TikTok recently with like the ban and the unban and blah, 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 blah. I've seen so many people that are in a sense mourning it. And then other people from the band perspective that are like, please God, make it go away so I don't have to do this anymore. Where do you guys fall on that spectrum?
I'm kind of like 50-50. Like my wife loves TikTok, so I see the appeal of it. I know that it's helped boost a lot of bands that might otherwise not get their name out there by just like properly using it. So I think it's useful. It's a lot to manage all these different like social media platforms, but we're trying to get better at it. 2025 TikTok Monach, we're coming for you.
Yes, welcome to being in a band.
Yeah.
You're now a social media manager.
I know, apparently.
You are now a videographer. Content manager.
Content creators.
Just jack of all trades.
Yeah. I like TikTok for that too, but then at the same time, it's like I've been doom scrolling at like 2 a.m. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, put it down. Like,
Yeah.
No, we found like some bands recently too that we've reached out for shows and stuff just through TikTok. So
Yeah. And it's hard to feel too like, oh, this is another thing we have to do, when like bands from like Belleville, like Arm's Length, they used to be openers a couple of years ago, and like now they've blown up, and I'm pretty sure part of that is from TikTok. So it's like, okay, well, we have to use it. Like, if we want to go as far as we want to go, then we'll just have to get better at it.
Arm's Length is a great example, because I hadn't really considered like, I remember them being that local band, and now they're like, I think they're in Europe right now.
Yeah.
And I hadn't considered like the between step A and step B, what got them there.
Yeah.
TikTok obviously being a big part of that.
Yeah. And obviously there's like a lot of other things that go into getting to that point, but I just went to the When We Were Young Fest in Vegas this year, and they announced the lineup, and they're on the lineup for next year, and I'm like, I just wish like that's I want to do that.
helps too that they're like a great band.
Yeah,
Just
they
the
are very
exposure
good.
was so like perfect for them. It's like, wow, look at that.
That's some like lightning in a bottle stuff
perfect.
right there.
Awesome.
And they're also maybe lightning in a bottle and something in the water too, because there's between Arm's Length, yourselves, bands like my brain just went blank. Cleopatra, there we go. Just further down the 401, there seemed to be something in just this southeastern Ontario stretch that's kind of having a moment right now in a way.
We only know like so many kind of emo bands that fit in our genre from around here. So I would love like just a fifth wave emo burst just centrally located in Ontario for us to just like collab with all these bands, play shows with them.
People always make the sort of joke. I saw it floating around today on like Laura Jane Grace's threads of like political unrest and feeling despondent because of the current state of politics always leads to great punk rock. I feel like also in Ontario, there's like this sense of like, if I were to reference any album, it would be like Spanish love songs like Brave Faces, Everyone, where half the record is just like, I'll never buy a house and this sucks.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's creating like an interesting vibe in the punk scene. I might just be waxing poetic. Is anybody else picking up on this vibe?
No, I think you're right. Like I would say even some of the new stuff that we're writing lyrically is more focused on that. 'Cause it's getting to the point like we're trying to plan for the future, and it's like, oh, like our options feel like it's heavy and we don't have as many choices as maybe the people before us did. So there's a lot of like just feeling hopeless as to being able to accomplish the things you want to accomplish and have that like dream life of like having a house and stuff that's yours and you're not paying landlords. Yeah.
I concur.
Yeah.
I feel like I just took us down a bummer path.
See, that's interesting, though, that you say that, because when I listened to the sample of Thank You, Chef, I just had this overcoming sense of hope and infectious happiness.
Yeah.
And I was smiling the whole time I was listening to it. So figure that one out.
I think our mission accomplished that.
Okay, good.
Because as hard as times are right now, I think that is something that you have to like have. You have to. Speaking for myself, I'm like almost optimistic to like a fault. I know how bad things can get and how heavy things can feel. So I want people to like be able to turn to something and not have to feel like that even for like a moment. Like at our shows, listening to our music. And part of that song too is there's the saying like you can't love someone else until you love yourself. And I've always thought that too is kind of like, it's kind of a downer thing to say, and it feels like isolating in a way. I don't think that you should have to feel like you have to like figure yourself out entirely before you go and make a connection with someone else. I think you can learn to do that through loving someone else and through having supportive people around you. So that song's basically about like doing exactly that and like having hope that you can make it through hard times, just like leaning on the people you love. And yeah.
Well, you had one job and you nailed it.
It's a really powerful sentiment, a really powerful thought to share in a song.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a big softie, self-admittedly.
You don't say, as an emo. Well, I feel like that's a perfect time. Should we play the song right now?
I think
Sure.
Go for it.
Yeah.
All right. This is brand new Monach, Thank You, Chef, on Kingston Live.
Sold out in the cold, in a frame by frame that feels like home. I felt a light in you, a million little pieces singing in tune. I guess at some point that I started to think I'm better off of myself, won't disappoint no one else. When my words refuse to make it out, when my mind's drowned out and I'm not around. Suddenly I'm thinking, so matter with the meds I'm taking, maybe you're wondering from the life I'm living. Can't believe the things I've been thinking. I think I wanna get better. So matter with the meds I'm taking, maybe you're wondering from the life I'm living. Can't believe
This episode of Kingston Live is brought to you by Grand Onstage. Grand Onstage takes you beyond the regular Kingston Grand Theater experience. It's a subscription option that gives you access to pre-sale tickets, the best prices, and the best seats. That means you can customize your own individual package starting at just 4 performances. Want to bring friends? Subscriber pricing applies to their tickets too. And if your plans change, just exchange your tickets for another performance. Tickets for individual performances and subscriptions for the Grand Onstage season are on sale now at kingstongrand.ca.
So you guys are involved in the Still Aive in Kingston film, which is obviously the follow-up to Live in Kingston, which hotly anticipated. I cannot wait for it at this year's Kingston Canadian Film Festival. As a band involved in it, can you tell us anything about it? Is there anything you're willing to disclose as of yet?
I can tell you that it's very good and you should go see it at the Grand.
Hell yeah.
Now,
We're in it.
We're in it. Spoiler alert. No, when Jay emailed us out of the blue and said, "Hey, I'm making this follow-up to a film. It's got Bill, who used to be a Much Music VJ. Very cool. I'm going to be filming a scene at a wrestling venue, and I want a high-energy band to play. I heard your song, The Face, The Touch. I love it. I think that you guys would be perfect for that. Do you want to be a part of it?" Which, first off, that's probably the coolest offer we've ever gotten before, is to play in the middle of like a wrestling match. As a kid who grew up watching wrestling, I feel like little me would just be stoked to know that I grow up and play music and one of my songs is featured in a wrestling match. And then something that includes like a bunch of cool local bands like Oak Ridge Ave, The Wilderness, stuff like that, like supporting the scene like that and giving them exposure like that is just a hands down flat yes for us. So we said yes. The wrestling venue part didn't work out, unfortunately. And then it was just kind of like a back and forth like phone tag between us and Jay. And eventually he just said, "Okay, I'm going to come down to one of your shows and just film you guys playing." We were like, yes, okay, perfect. So we made it work. Very cool opportunity.
Absolutely. I remember someone pointed out to me once, there's like a Venn diagram of guys who grew up on like 2000s emo and pop punk and wrestling fans, and it's almost just a flat circle.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
I know like the Wonder Years, which they're a band that we look up to a lot. They're big wrestling fans. So I'm just like, yeah, that checks out. Honestly.
The movie isn't the only new release for you guys. Obviously, new album coming up. What can you tell us about it?
Well, it's been in the works, like we said, for 1,000 years. So we actually started working on that when Dooner came out, September 2019, and we started working on it in mid-November the same year. So it's been a long time, but it was just, we had a lineup change, and then when you get the new lineup, you have to relearn and teach the songs to the new member. And then COVID came, and we couldn't meet up anymore to work on the album. So we had all this time. I'm just sitting at home being like, okay, what if I just, on top of all the stuff that we already had planned for the album, just write and record a bunch of like sketches of songs for us to come back to. And once we're content with them, we'll have like an album's worth. So I did that, but then the downside of doing that is you do that and then you're like, oh, I can't go any further with this. So you just have to sit with it and be like, yep, that's good. We'll do that eventually. So when things opened up again, we got back together and we had to go through the process of, oh, we haven't played for a while. Let's just like jam a bit and then figure out these songs and tinker with them together and have everyone put their touch and their influence on it. We got halfway through recording, I think, and then we had to drop our drummer. Big bummer, but it led us to our good friend Curtis over here, who was already a fan of the band, luckily. So
Yeah, it was sweet.
yeah.
And they just sat me down like, here's 25 songs. You can learn them right now. And I was like, okay, cool. No one's heard half of them. I'm like, oh, cool.
Yeah, we kind of put him through the ringer because we were like, okay, we have an album that we were working on. We need you to... Also, first off, you hadn't played drums in like...
Yeah, I was like in between bands and just was like, oh, I guess bands are done now. I'm going to go get a job and be an adult.
Yeah, but he was like eager to pick them back up to be a part of the band. So he did that, bless his heart.
Yeah.
And then we just immediately were like, all right, we need you to learn this album's worth of songs. You can make them your own. You have to get them memorized enough that they're recording ready. Also, we want to keep playing shows, so we need you to also learn these songs. Just relentless. But he came through, and he's been killing it ever since.
Helps when you like the songs too, so it was cool.
I still remember you coming out to the first show and not expecting us to be good, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it was like, you're just like, oh, come to my band show. Like, we're a lot of fun. I was like, all right, I'll go. And I was like, I'm supporting my friends here. And then they went on. I was like, oh, they're actually good. Holy crap, let's go. And they were like, you want to drum? And I was like, yes, please, absolutely. Let's do this.
So yeah, it worked out for us anyways.
Well, I'm glad it did.
Yeah.
Me too.
Us too. Yeah. It definitely helps, because when we had to start finding a new drummer, we were like, okay, we're going to try and look within our like friend circles, because then we'll already have a connection with the person and we'll have like a level of trust already, so we don't have to work too hard to build that. Worked out pretty perfectly. I was expecting it to take a long time and be like, dang, it's like 2030 and the album's still not out.
I swear it's coming out. Worked out too, because I knew Ryan and Nick just from playing shows forever. I've seen them at shows since
Yeah, you guys,
high school. So
you guys all played in bands previously.
yeah,
Which is, yeah.
did random things. I think one of Nick's old bands and my old band did like a little run. Well, we hopped on one of their shows in Toronto to like 5 people at the venue, and we're like, this is sweet. We're playing in Toronto. It doesn't matter. And then here we are doing that to 30 plus people.
We've made it.
We've done it.
I thought of a really random question.
Oh, yeah.
This is for you, Andrew.
Oh, no.
Do you purposely go out and get your hair done before a show? Every time I see you have a different haircut, a different hair color.
No, I just get bored
hairstyle.
is all.
Yeah.
I'm rarely content. I just like to switch it up.
It
Well,
doesn't
it's a
tell
good
us
outlet,
either.
and
Yeah.
I totally understand
Yeah.
that as somebody who dyes her hair.
I like to have the element of surprise.
Just shows up and he's blonde, and we're like, oh, hey.
Yeah.
And
doesn't mention it.
blonde with long hair, blonde with short hair. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have a catalog.
I think the long hair is probably not going to make as much of a comeback for now anyways, just based on the fact that I got tired of eating my hair, and
Okay.
having a guitar in your hand, you can't readily be like, stop. So,
Got to master the emo
Yeah.
swoosh. Just
I
We got
remember,
that on film. Right?
I'm so glad we're video recording that. Stop. All right. For anybody that wants to find you on socials, online, anywhere, where do they find Monach on the internet?
I think most of our tags are just Monach Band. So pretty much anywhere. If you find us on one social, we have like a link tree with links to all of our socials. So very convenient.
we're on Facebook,
Yeah.
Instagram, TikTok,
TikTok.
A little bit TikTok.
sometimes TikTok.
We're trying.
Doing our best.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, guys, thanks so much for coming in.
Yeah.
thanks for
Thank you for having us.
This has been Kingston Live. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please share it, tell a friend, or subscribe on your platform of choice. For show listings, artist info, and all things Kingston music, check out kingstonlive.ca. Kingston Live was produced in Kingston by Soundwise, hosted by Riley Jabor and Virginia Meeks. Voiceovers and technical production by John Sanfilippo. Writing and research by Peter Sanfilippo. Executive producer Rob Howard. We'd love to hear from you. Email us at podcast@kingstonlive.ca.
Thanks for having us on. That was fun.
Yeah, that was a ton of fun.
Everybody always has fun.
Yeah. That's the main point.
They don't always believe me at first.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've never had anybody end the podcast and be like, well, that sucked.
Yeah. Storm out
hell outta here.
mid
I would be so sad
podcast.
if that happened.
Just crying in their car outside. You're like, what the